If you knew you were enough, what would your life look like? What would love look like? This is the Enough Factor broadcast, where we're redefining what makes you enough in life and in love. Now here's your host, Suzette Birnall. Hello everybody, and welcome to my Enough Factor podcast. I'm your life coach and relationship solutionist, Suzette Birnall, helping you to redefine what makes you enough in life and in love on your own terms. This podcast, as its name suggests, is about your enough factor. And each week, I and my guests endeavor to amplify 3 critical factors of enoughness: your voice, your value, and your vision, so you can bring your authentic self into your relationships and experience love and life in a brand new way. Now, as much as I'm known to give advice, solicited or not, I wouldn't be as effective without this platform and you, my loyal enough warriors, who tune in every week and send me texts and direct messages about how much the episodes resonate with you. Now, if you're new, what you'll experience here is what my listeners tell me keeps them coming. They love the honesty and the depth and how my podcasts fill in the blanks for them in ways that listening to a relationship video can't, or even talking to their therapist doesn't. I do it because I know what it's like to get a piece of information here and a piece there and try to put it together only to find out that I don't know what I don't know. That's why with my podcast and my coaching solutions, I don't just tell you how, but I tell you the why behind the how and help you to connect it in a way that is meaningful for you. That I found is the only way that it'll stick. That's also why over the next several weeks, I'm talking with men and women who, like me, found love later in life and aren't too proud to share with you not only what it took to find love, but how they are being challenged to do love differently this time. In fact, today's episode, part of my Finding Love Later in Life series, is being brought to you by my 3-month coaching program, Doing Love Differently. And it focuses on ending the cycle of self-betrayal, mistrust, and attracting Mr. Wrongs. If the way you're doing love ain't working, then hey, it's time to do love differently. To find out more about it, go to SuzetteSolutions.com/our programs. Check it out. Now, without further delay, today's episode. Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to Enough Factor Podcast. If you're new, like the name suggests, this podcast is about your enough factor. It's your voice, your value, and your vision that determine your experience of love and life. And with this podcast, I seek to amplify those critical factors of enoughness so you can redefine what makes you enough accordingly. Joining me today is the love doctor himself, Robert Nolden. Now, I was just looking back through my social media archives, and Rob and I go way back to like 2013.
Yes.
Yes, I had a blog talk radio show, Ordinary is the New Extraordinary, where I featured Stefan Labossiere and Stephanie McKenzie, both veterans, or I guess natives, I should say, of Houston, Texas at the time. And they were both relationship coaches, right? And from there, Rob and I kind of crisscrossed. And before I knew it, we were direct messaging each other. And long story short, he was on my radio show. I was on his radio show.
Yes, Lord. Yes. Building bridges.
Yes. And then I had the I would like to say, inspired idea to have a summit of good men called You Ask, Good Men Answered, where Rob was one of the popular guests. And so today Rob is joining me, and that's my personal. Now, you want to know a little bit more of a formal bio, Rob is from Louisiana. Our place, is it called Marrero?
Yes.
Okay, right outside of New Orleans. And
Yes, ma'am.
you'll be able to hear that when he talks. You know he's a New Orleans kind of guy. But he's a relationship advisor, author, and speaker. And he's a father of 3, has been divorced before, but now he's married, and we're going to go more into that. And he has taken his life experiences and used them to teach the world how to love again. Through his speaking and teaching, Robert hopes to give women the knowledge and truth he would want his daughter to have. And among his lauded contributions is the book, He Can't Love You. I also discovered some workshops hosted by Envision Love Coaching, which is his coaching business that he offers locally in the Louisiana area. So I want you all to welcome to the virtual stage, love Dr. Robert Nolden.
Well,
Welcome,
thank you,
Rob.
thank you. You already know it was definitely a pleasure. It's funny. I'm listening to the intro and I'm like, wow, things have changed because I've gone from the father of 3 to the father of 4 plus. You know what I mean? Because we had, when I got married, she had 3 kids, which now they're my kids, and then we had another one. So I have a 3-year-old running around bossing my house. It's been a long time since a child told me what to do, but it is what it is. So
I tell you, it's funny how life can be full circle. You could think you're done, then you meet that special someone, and next thing you know, the clock has been reset, and you're doing things that you were like, I thought I was finished with this.
Listen, my daughter and my grandson are 6 months apart. Okay,
wow.
So yeah, life's taking some turns, but it's been rewarding all the way through.
Oh man, well, in true Enough Factor podcast fashion, I always like to open up my interviews with what I call truth and dare. It's a little different than truth or dare. That's the good news. The bad news is it's truth and dare. You don't get to choose.
I'm with it. I love it.
Are you here for it?
Time. I am here for it.
Okay, so here's the question. What is the truth about you that getting married has required you to confront and dared you to transform because of it?
You know what? It's funny. I had this conversation just last night, because one of my things is about being honest with yourself. And so what I realized is that I'm a real shutdown artist, right? Mm-hmm. When things get complicated or when I feel emotionally challenged, I have a need to shut down for whatever reason. So that is one of the things that have been like my focal point. Mm-hmm. It's my truth. I realize that because of it, it could cause me to walk away from a relationship. But being that this relationship is so important to me, it's forced me to face it. Because my wife is a person who, if something happens, it happened. Okay, let's move forward and get over it, right? But for me, I internalize a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I tend to find it a little bit harder to just be like, okay, leave it alone and move forward. So that is something that I've really been very passionate about working on, mm-hmm. because it's forced me to look at myself. And I honestly it's funny because over time I've learned so much about myself. And my wife is one of those people. It's mad day, I say stuff when I'm mad, so you shouldn't hold on to it or whatever. But one day, I was telling her, like, I'm a person who, if you talk to me properly, we could talk forever. The minute you raise your voice, start cursing, anything like that, I'm either gonna shut down and I'm gonna retreat, or like if I retreat back far enough and you continue to proceed, then I'm gonna lash out. And I'm not comfortable with that side of myself, but I know it, right? So what happened was I had to realize that stemmed from my childhood. My dad was really aggressive in his way of talking to you. You're a boy, so it really didn't matter. I didn't have to nurture you. I didn't have to be courteous about your feeling. I didn't have to walk on eggshells. I'm just gonna say what I gotta say. If you don't like it, it's whatever. And as a child, you can't combat that. You're not gonna go word for word with your parent or whatever. You just gonna kind of take it. Well, as I got older, I realized that was a real crippling thing for me. And when people raise their voice or challenge me in any verbal confrontation, I would lash out. And then one day, me and her were talking, and I was like, you know what? This has nothing to do with you. This is about that child trying to stand up to that parent who made him feel this way. It made me feel insignificant. It made me feel like I was less of a person. So when you're talking to me a certain way, there will be times that I would be trying to defend myself and make myself feel like, hold on, I need you to know who you're talking to. I need you to know that I need you to speak to me differently. I need to feel that I'm worth you talking to me a certain way. And that's where a lot of my shutting down came from. You know what I mean? Not wanting to feel like I was less of a person, not wanting to feel like somebody didn't value me. If you value me, you wouldn't speak to me like this. If you value me, you wouldn't handle me like that. And honestly, for myself, for a long time, even up into my adulthood, I had a problem with, whether or not my father valued me enough. So that was something that was definitely significant, and it was something that I definitely had to work on, and realistically am still working on in my relationship, because there are moments where that PTSD raises its ugly head.
You better say it. It does. And it's interesting because what you were sharing, I had a father that must have gone to the same school your father went to. And he had daughters. He didn't have sons. He had 3 girls. But I remember back in the day, my mom used to beat us for the old and the new. If we got a whipping, it was for the old and the new.
Yeah,
and I never forget. As bad and as painful as that was, I told her once, I'd rather you to beat me for the old and the new and the everything than for daddy to start fussing. Because when daddy would start fussing, it felt like somebody pulling the skin off of me with no pain relief at all.
I think that, for me, what happened was, and this is my truth, I guess. When I was younger, it was me and my sister. My sister and I are a year apart. She's a year younger. From the time she came into the world, it was always my responsibility to look out for my sister, which is cool. It wasn't really a big thing. The difference was, like, for my dad, he felt like girls were supposed to be nurtured and boys were supposed to just figure it out. So I would watch him give my sister affection and attention that I needed as well. But because I was a male, he didn't feel that I needed that same nurturing and attention. With that being said, I was always a stellar student. I always excelled, but there was a point where I started looking at it and I was like, well, okay, now I need more of your time. So in order to get your time and your attention, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it. It was one of those things where you look at it and you say, okay, you look at it and you say, well, for me, I'm on a page where it's kind of like, how would I say it? Negative attention is better than no attention at all. Right. So because of that, I got to a place where that's what I did. I started doing negative stuff to get his attention. And in doing that, what happened was, instead of him giving me attention, it'd be like, well, you ain't gonna be nothing, no way. You ain't never gonna be this. And that started to sink into my psyche. So then I started looking for, an opportunity for me to feel like I was enough. So, at that point, anything that was going a certain way, I was like, nah, I can't do this like this. And, a lot of how he was talking to me just was difficult for me to deal with.
It's interesting that, and I feel like this is a perfect segue into one of the things we say we're going to talk about, is the difference in who we are as relationship coaches now that we're married than it was when we were single and we were telling people about relationships. Because a lot of this stuff doesn't come to a head in our dating like it does when we're in a real committed kind of investment.
That's a
It's
fact.
it's easy to skirt so much, and it's funny because I think we were both great relationship coaches as single people. Not
Hmm.
taking anything away from that. I think we were great. But one of the things that hit me was I was only scratching the surface of
Right.
this whole relationship thing. And the other thing that got me too, Rob, was you can't take people somewhere you've never been.
Hmm.
So we could only take people up to a certain level of understanding when it came to romantic relationships. But when you in a committed one,
Let me tell you, and it's funny. I think like for me, the irony to that was when I was coaching from a single place, I guess you would call it. Um, in that moment, I just wanted people, I guess, to make better decisions.
mm-hmm,
And I really wasn't thinking about the totality of some of my teachings or whatever, you know. But from a relationship standpoint and coaching, it's kind of like, okay, I have an obligation to ensure that people get both the good and the bad, but see the worth of the good versus the bad, you know. Because I tell people all the time, I'm married, but that does not mean that I'm in a perfect marriage. I'm in a marriage where we're striving for perfection. So there'll be days when she's gonna be mad and I'm gonna be mad. There'll be days when things will arise and we kind of like, man, I don't know about this today, but I know the value of the person that I have, and I understand the trials and tribulations that go along with it. So as a result, what I do is I fight through, you know.
mm-hmm,
So when you sitting down and you talking to somebody from a single place, it's kind of like, listen, you know, before you get committed, before you do this, before you do that, you need to address da 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 da. You know,
mm-hmm.
when you're in that relationship and you're talking about it, you like, okay, now whether you're in the relationship or prior to, you still have to address this animal. You can't go in assuming that you can't give it the proper treatment. You can't go in acting as if this doesn't exist. No, you have to deal with this head on. And I understand now that being in a relationship, sometimes it takes you being in a relationship to realize some of the monsters that you've been hiding from,
You
you
better
know.
say it.
And that's my thing. I would tell somebody, you know, and this is gonna sound so funny, but um again, understanding that who you were as a child or who you know, the things that you learned throughout your adolescence and into your, you know, teenage years, early adulthood, you will be surprised how much of that stuff lingers with you and becomes baggage, right? But I remember in my, you know, coming out of divorce in my dating stages and whatnot, when I kind of was too hurt to involve myself in any relationship, but was still dealing with every woman I could deal with, hoping to find a sense of value. Um, there would be women who would be willing to do any and everything for me. And I would be so crazy. I look at them and go like, I'm not loving myself right now. So there's something wrong with you if you're loving me and I don't love me. So I couldn't even see the value of that person because I hadn't assigned the value to myself yet. Right. So
Mm-hmm.
going into my marriage, even finding somebody who I felt this way about and who I was so engaged with and I was so tied to and all of this other stuff, there was still a part of me that was like, okay, so what happens if I get uncovered here? You know, I still have emotional baggage that I haven't quite, you know, figured it all out with. I still have these things. Are they going to be able to still love me in spite of? You know what I mean? So now you
Mm-hmm.
have to sit down. And what I found myself doing was saying, okay, whatever happened to you happened, right? Let's just be real about it. It happened. It has become a part of you in your teaching and in your learning,
Mm-hmm.
but it's not you, right? It doesn't define you. You're defined in spite of. You're defined whether this happens or not. You have to grow into who you're going to be. So all right, it happened. Now that you accepted it happened, nobody can use it against you. Either they're going to love you for who you are now, or they're not going to love you at all. Either way, you still have to love yourself. One of the most defining moments in my life, to be honest with you, that point where I was like, okay, yeah, I did this. Like, I tell people, like, it's funny because, like, if I go somewhere, and I still think it's funny to this day. I went out with a friend of mine, longtime friend of mine, really were hanging out during my single days, right? So he was a part of the out every night, different woman every night type stuff. Oh, he was definitely a part of that part of my life. And we sitting down and we're talking, and he's like, man, you remember we did this and you remember we did that? I'm like, yeah, I remember it. It's, history or whatever. So as we're sitting down having a drink, we go like, well, listen, we go back to my house, sit down, finish talking, whatever. And he was like, my wife goes into the room and he's like talking to me, but he's whispering. What are you doing? He was like, well, I don't know if you want your wife to hear this. Boy, nothing you could tell me that my wife ain't already heard. Just me, I did that. I explained it to her because what's not going to happen is nobody's going to be able to have a conversation around her about something that she doesn't know about. You're not going to be able to laugh at her and embarrass her, but you won't be able to embarrass me either. I've accepted who I was. I've accepted the things that I've done. And because I was able to accept them, the person who loves me has to accept it. You right? So as I started looking at life like that, and then I started really reflecting on my coaching when I was single, right? I really started reflecting. I was going, okay, when I was single, I was more or less like telling people the things that they could do to prevent getting into this situation, right? So, okay, you don't want to end up here. You can't, ending up wherever is inevitable. You're going to end up somewhere regardless, right? What do you do when you get there?
That's it.
What do you do when you get there?
That right there, Rob.
I have people.
What are you gonna do?
It's funny. I have people right now. There's a person I know. They're involved with a guy, and the guy's like, "Hey, I don't want a relationship." You know what I'm saying? And he hasn't wanted a relationship forever. And she's like, "But he's doing relationship stuff." And what do you call relationship stuff? Well, he comes over. He texts me. He checks on me. He'll stay the night. Oh no, he's doing stuff to have relations, but he's definitely not doing relationship stuff. There's
you better say that again, Rob. He's having relations, but he's not
doing stuff to have relations, but he's not doing relationship stuff. Like what keep? And she was like, "Well, what stops it from being relationship stuff?" I said, "He keeps telling you he don't want to be in a relationship, so it's no longer relationship stuff. Now he's doing what's required to sleep with you, and that's a whole different ball game." So she was upset with him. I'm like, you can't be upset with him for doing the very thing you're allowing him to do. Like he's not doing anything wrong. Let's just be realistic about this. There's absolutely nothing that he's doing wrong in this moment because you're accepting it. Now, what are you going to do to change that dynamic? Right? And she was like, well, would you give your daughter this advice? This is the advice I hope my daughter already has ascertained. Right? Like, let's be real. So, and she was like, well, what did you do when you were single? Let me just be honest with you. When I was single, I was very irresponsible, but I was damaged too. Right? So I allowed myself to do things, and I didn't hold myself accountable for my own responsibilities. Right? I told a young man yesterday, there comes a point in time in every man's life when you should evaluate yourself and say, should I get out this woman's way? Right? If I know that I'm not what she needs, should I just move along? No matter what woman she is, no matter what her quality is, no matter what she brings to the table, can I appreciate that, right? Now I have a sound responsibility to make a decision and get out of her way. If I can't love her right now, let somebody who can have her, right? But also for that woman, you got to ask yourself, if he's not able to give me these things, should I let him go? Should I be mature enough to get out of his way?
Well, here's the thing. Most of the women think, using that example that you just gave, most women think they are presenting him with the way life would be with me if we were together. So it's almost this thing of, okay, you're behaving, it's like your behavior is telling me as a woman that you want to be with me. You want to do the relationship thing with me, because you are calling, because you are coming over for dinner, because you are doing all these things in my mind that make us in a relationship, that you are doing those things. And so she's thinking, well, he's leading me on because he's saying he doesn't want a relationship, but he's doing all the things that people in relationships do. That's the way women see it.
Well, my thing is, and I understand that part of it. I think that's where the true healing nature has to come into point. Like for me, if I'm sitting down and I've seen this happen so many times, I find myself having conversations with women and they'll go, but men do it all the time. Well, why is it different if a man can do it? And I'm saying, listen, you have some males who are doing it, right? I get it. But you're talking about broken men who are operating from a broken place. And you have to be realistic with yourself. Broken people can make broken look so good.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Broken people will make broke look so good. So what happens is you start looking at what they're doing and you're talking about, oh, look how enjoyable it is and look how much fun he's having, not realizing he's really damaged. He hurting. You know, and I using the same friend that I was talking about, like it was funny because when I went to him one day and I was like, listen, you know, all this going on stuff, different women, I'm tired of this. I'm about to stop this. And he was like, but we having so much fun. Like, who's we? Like, you're having so much fun. I'm a relationship-oriented individual. I know that. I love the idea of being in a relationship. This is not fun to me. He's like, but every time you go out, you're having so much fun. Now, I put on a good show and I get it. I perform well, but this was not who I am. This is not my happy place, right? So when I'm talking to women and I'm saying, listen, yeah, okay, you may have seen me do this. You may have seen other men operate like this, but trust me, there's some damage that's there that you can't see. You know, when women are talking about, well, a woman should be able to sleep with whoever she wants to sleep with. That's a fact. But a woman should know that the power is in choosing who not to sleep with as well. You know, I said that, you know, for me, as a man, I sit back and I go, there are a number of days when I think about some people that I slept with and been like, man, like if I could just go and get that back, I'd be that much better in life, right? There were some times that I should have said, nah, not that one, right? And I'm a man. So as a woman, there should definitely be some points in your life where you was like, shh, that was a dumb moment for me. You know what I'm saying? Brain fart moment. I should have not done it. And they're like, nah, because I do what I want. We're weighing apples and oranges. We're comparing apples and oranges. There's not a question in whether or not you can do what you want to do. But the question is, why don't you want to do better? Why is it you would rather sleep with somebody randomly than be in a relationship with somebody who's committed to you and you solely? You know?
Yeah, or take somebody who's broken and try to fix them. Because I think that's that whole codependent dance that women and men find themselves in. It's like she needs to feel like she's in a relationship. And even if he says he doesn't want to be in one, if he's calling and paying attention, she'll tell herself, oh, okay, well, we're in a relationship, right? And it's like she needs him to do those things to make her feel valuable, right? But then he needs her to let him do those things and he can get away with it without a commitment. It's almost like it's a sick cycle.
It definitely is a cycle. It's a cycle of dependency. And then the irony to all of that is, again, one can't exist without the other, but then both are feeling validated by the other one's behavior, even though is dysfunctional.
It's like you ask the woman, well, don't you want something long-term? Don't you want something committed? Yeah, I do. I'm like, well, then why are you with him? But he keeps calling and he keeps coming over and we can have long conversations and this. And I'm like, but is that what you want? Well, no, but they'll stick with the person thinking that the longer they stay in the relationship, they're going to prove to him they're the person that he wants.
You know, it's crazy because, you know, when I hear women talk about, you know, the things that they do with the guy who doesn't want to be in a relationship with them. And I'm saying, like, you have to sit down and evaluate it all the way through. First and foremost, and we're sitting down and we having these long conversations, but we're having long conversations with somebody who does not want to be with us, chances are we're talking more than they're talking because they don't want to give us access to the complete them. So they're going to sit and they'll listen, but really what's being discussed? We can't discuss the future. Why? I don't want a future with you, right? We're not discussing your responsibilities and your bills because you're not my responsibility. We're not talking about the things that matter to you because you don't matter to me. I mean, you can talk about it, but we won't be talking about it,
Yeah,
right?
we won't be talking about relationship. Wait, a relationship? Hold up. I told you I didn't want to be in one.
Huh.
Right?
And a woman, man, listen, I'm telling you, a woman told me one day, I said, she was talking to me about a guy, and I was like, well, he told you that he didn't want to be in a relationship. She said, that's not what he told me. He told me he's not crap. I was like, that if that's not the warning sign, like what else did he have to say? When a man tell you he's nothing, that means he ain't gonna be nothing to you, sweetheart. That was your window out. You know, for you to wait for him to evolve into what you believe he can be is a waste of time, right? Because most people are where they are by design, their own. You know, they're stuck there by choice. They're stuck there because you know what? Here is a comfortable place for me. So I don't want to change. You know, it's not a matter of can I find somebody who's going to love me and treat me right? The question is, can I love and treat somebody right? Because most people who have trust issues have trouble trusting themselves first.
That's right.
Right?
That's
One
right.
I you know, on Mondays I started doing this man conversation Monday on Instagram, and talking to the guy yesterday, and he said, you know, he right now he's in a relationship, and from time to time when him and his girlfriend are having conversations or whatever, and they're talking about trust issues or whatever, he'll tell her, whatever you're doing, just don't get caught. Right? And he was like, for him, the reason that he does that is because he's put that type of energy in the atmosphere so much that he knows at some point it has to come back and see him. Right? So he prepares himself by saying, hey, look, whatever you're doing, just don't get caught. Now, in his mind, she may not be doing anything, but the fact that he couldn't trust himself to be faithful to anybody for any extended period of time makes him feel like nobody else can either. Right? So when you can't trust yourself to make sound, logical decisions, of course, nobody's better than me. So why would they be able to do something that I can't do? Right? So you're not going to trust somebody to be able to give you those things. A lot of times I feel like, you know, for me as a person, I think that, you know, being in a relationship really, really helps me see so much more from coaching. And when I say that, not only from when I'm coaching other people, but when I'm looking at other coaches, you know, there are a lot of males who are coaching right now. And I can honestly tell you that when I sit back and I look at their coaching practices, they're unethical, right? They're sitting back and they're misguiding a lot of people for their own benefit, for their own reward. And so many people are looking for somebody to guide them in a certain direction that they totally miss the misinformation they're getting. One guy was talking and I heard him say, he told a woman, he said, you're meeting guys and you're expecting these guys to just all of a sudden start loving on you, but you got your heart guarded. You have to start opening your heart as soon as you meet somebody. Wait a minute, slow down. Why would I give you access to something before I know whether or not you can handle it? Why would I allow you to have like the full value of my heart? And I don't even know you as a person. I'm not granting access to any and everybody right off the cuff, you know, but as he's saying this, mind you, he's talking to this lady and telling her how beautiful she is and, you know, how they should talk off camera. And that, see, this looks bad. But for those who are in need of his validation, oh, yeah, he's telling me all the right stuff. No, he's not.
Oh, Rob, right. It's funny because it's interesting. There was a point where I was talking to some people about something relational, and they were giving me the names of some other relationship people that they listened to. And I knew they meant well. At least that's what I've told myself. They meant well, saying, I listen to this person, this person, this person, this person. Maybe you should pattern, after them. And I think that was when I sat back and I said to myself, okay, especially when it came to the men, not so much with the women, but when it came to the men that they talked about, I said, wait a minute, ain't none of them in a relationship. So wait a minute. So here I am. I have gone from growing, doing the work, to go from single to married. That means something that I've done along the way manifested in the direction that I said I wanted, correct? And it wasn't so much marriage, but it was a healthy, loving relationship. But yet you want to send me to somebody that ain't even in one yet. They giving relationship advice, but they ain't even in one yet. So what does that say?
And here's my thing. Here's my thing. My wife and I, we were talking about this because she followed several different people at different times. And she, well, babe, you should check this one out. And baby, you should look at this one. And I'm like, we're in different places. And she was like, how you say that? I said, listen, some of these people have been doing this for years and years and years. And I mean male and female, but they've been doing this for years and years and years. I've seen people call themselves like the ultimate dating coach and the ultimate relationship specialist and so on and so forth. But you are single. And I'm like, okay, listen, if you have all these skill sets, if you have all these abilities and you can put two people together who know nothing about each other, why is it you can't find somebody for yourself? Right? And so I'm sitting down and I'm looking at myself and I'm saying, okay, what I've learned is that there's an audience for everybody. And some people just need to be validated. Some people need to be entertained. Some people really want to be informed and they want to grow. I'm here for those who want to be informed and want to grow.
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, because I know of some people, and I thought of a single woman that tout being very effective in helping people to navigate their stuff. And some of those people have gotten married or their marriages have been saved. I think my thing has been, if it works for other people, what is the blind spot in you? That makes it so that you can help other people. But what's going on with you where your own advice or your own ability to open or whatever, what's the blind spot in you that's keeping you from experiencing the very love you're helping other people to find?
Well, that's the thing, though. You have to really do the self-work. I'm not going to lie to you. Prior to me getting married, and I tell my wife this all the time, there was like a year and a half, almost 2-year period where I was like, you know what, I just need a detox. You know what I mean? I need to get me together. I need to figure out what's going on with me. Why am I like this? And I realized that, again, I was looking for worth. I was looking for my worth and from other people, right? So I understood I had to design a value for self. That was my Achilles heel. There are a lot of people who are so busy fixing everybody else that they don't have an opportunity to address their own issues. And for some people, that is why they're so busy fixing people, because as long as I can fix everybody else, I don't have to look at what's wrong with me.
I don't have to look at
it. And what happens, though, if you're really serious about yourself and about life, what happens is God will put you in a position where you have to look at yourself, even when you don't want to. When you think everything is all right, you will find yourself like looking at yourself going, man, how did I end up here? But God needed you to get together. Like you can't walk completely in your purpose without at some point becoming all of who God needs you to be. Because one day somebody's going to call you on it. There's going to be somebody who's going to say, well, how can you help me? And here, you're not even in that position.
Mm-hmm.
How can you tell me when you can? I tell people, and I think they think it's funny, but I'm serious when I say it. There are times where I'll go sit down with a counselor because it's difficult enough to deal with your own baggage and also be responsible for so many others' baggage at the same time.
Yeah,
So there are times when
and we can't see we can't see our own blind spots. I don't care how good we are. We can't see our own blind spots.
I decided that I wanted to be more insightful in everything I'm doing. So I sat down and I decided that I was gonna go and get my master's in psychology, right? And it's funny because people would talk to me and they're like, I've seen you on panels with psychologists and people with doctors, and they didn't have the ability to speak the way you did, and so on and so forth. You don't really need that. That ain't nothing but a piece of paper. And I was like, listen, for you, it's just about the piece of paper. For me, it's about bettering myself. It's about strengthening myself in areas where I feel I can be better, even if nobody else sees the weaknesses in those areas, right? Like at some point, you got to look at yourself and say, okay, what can I do to put me in that much of a better situation and position? They don't want to do that. Like nobody wants to look at themselves and say, okay, self, you could be better. So there's certain things, if I'm willing to point out my own shortcomings, I need somebody on my team who I can trust to point them out as well, right? But I also need somebody around me that when I'm sharing that with them, they're strong enough to be able to accept it. You lose a lot of friends over time. You lose a lot of people in being honest, right?
You do. Yes, you do.
Because people are so accustomed to people just accepting whatever, not because it makes you better, but because if they point out your flaws, then you might point out theirs, and now they have to readjust or whatever. We have to know that even at our worst point, even at our in our weakest moment, we're still worth something. That was something that I know for myself and for a lot of people that I've talked to and coached, feeling like you're still valuable in a moment where you don't feel valuable is important. I've listened to some women in relationships and even some men in relationships who have struggled with, if this person doesn't do this, am I really worthy of it? If this person didn't give me this, am I really worth it? And you have to know, like, no matter who does what, you're still worth it. Like it may take you searching forever to find somebody who feels like you're worth it all the time. But when you find that person, then it's something completely different. And it's funny because I told my wife, and we talk about this all the time. There was a moment when like in our first couple of years that I was in my barbershop and we sit down and we're talking, but we're on the phone and she was talking to me and she kept saying like, what's wrong? I was like, nothing, I'm all right. And she was like, nah, something's wrong. I'm like, nah, I'm cool, whatever. And she was like, well, all right, I'll talk to you later. So we get off the phone. And at this moment, like for whatever reason in this moment, I was broken. And when I say broken, I mean, I'm sitting there, I'm stressed out, I'm in tears or whatever. And she pulled up. I'm like, what are you doing here? And she was like, oh no, I was on the phone with you and I could just tell something was wrong with you. So I had to come make sure you was all right. That spoke volumes. Like in that moment when I felt like the world was on my shoulders and everything was going wrong or whatever, for somebody to be able to hear me say what I was saying, but also be in a position where it's like, I'm coming to your rescue in spite of, even though you telling me nothing wrong, man, that meant the world to me. So it put me in a whole different position and it made me value her that much more.
Yeah, that's it. My husband and I were having a similar conversation. And I said, you know what? We all want somebody who sees us. even beyond all the crazy, all the stuff we've been through, all the barriers, all the mistakes, all the mishaps, all the I didn't get it right, all the I didn't say it right, all the I didn't show up right. But somebody who can see past all that and see the value of the heart that beats inside. When you find a person who you can trust your heart to like that, you're not going to just let them go. Not if that's
Man,
what you've been waiting for like you've been waiting for that for all your life, waiting for somebody that you feel at home with.
I said this, and it's crazy though, but my wife and I were talking one day, and she was talking about the guys that she's dated in the past or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what's funny about all those people? I was like, all those people accepted you with all whatever was wrong, right? They didn't challenge nothing, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet I'm the one that's still here fighting for you. Whether I'm
Mm-hmm.
telling you you need to change, if I'm telling you I need something different, if I'm telling you like whatever it is you were doing before me is not enough right here. I'm telling you that because I see the value in you and I see you can be greater, but I want that for us, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, we stray away from people who hold our feet to the fire. We will walk away from people who are saying, hey, I think you're good, but I see greatness in you,
I see it
right?
in you.
We veer away from those people because, again, what happens is those people tend to put us in situations where instead of us feeling like they're trying to build us up, that it makes us feel like we're being torn down, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they're pointing out the flaws. And that's how we look at it. We look at it like they're pointing out the flaws in their mind. I'm pointing out the areas where you could be greater at. There's a difference,
There is a
right?
difference. And it goes back to that truth or dare. What's that truth? Because what is it that movie that says you can't handle the truth? it,
You
it
can't
it
handle the
it
truth.
comes down to
You know,
the truth. And will you dare to allow truth to reveal the greatness that's in you? That's
man,
really it.
I tell you, I honestly, I swear my scariest moment was sitting down with my wife and having to say, listen, what you doing that's bothering me, I have to be real with you. It has nothing to do with you. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's technically you're doing it, but I'm not mad with you. I'm mad with the person who did it when I couldn't fight him back. I'm mad with the person who might have hurt me at this point and didn't even realize. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm arguing with you, or I got this wall up, and I have this, I have this protective covering on, shielding me from you, but it has nothing to do with you, right? So now I'm saying that. And when you're looking in my face, you're seeing like the emotions, and you like, well, what? Well, if it don't have nothing to do with me, why are we going through this? Because at the end of the day, I'm still fighting with me. Like even I'm telling you, it's about them. I'm not fighting with you. I'm fighting with me.
That's
You
it.
understand? Like, okay, I'm torn. I need to get this out of me, but I don't know where to bring it to. I can't bring it to the person who did it because let's be real, closure is something you have to give yourself. And if that person did it to you 9 times out of 10, they had no idea that what they did you was wrong. Actually, for them, it wasn't wrong. They were just being
Mm-hmm.
them. Now, however it affected you, that's your own situation. So now you have to give yourself closure. But again, until you realize that the closure is necessary, what do?
Mm.
Right?
Oh, Rob, this is so
Look,
good. You know what, when you said closure is something you have to give yourself, that really is the sum total of everything. Those other people trigger us, but we're not really fighting them. We're fighting with what's unresolved inside of us.
you know what? Let me say this
That's
real
really
quickly.
it.
I know our time's running out, but let me get this analogy in right quick.
Okay.
I went to a couple of weeks ago. I was in the kitchen doing something, had a new knife, and watching a Saints game. Looked up at the TV, and when I looked down, there was blood running. The tip of my finger was kind of like dangling. And I was like, "Oh my god!" But my first reaction was to bite the tip of my finger because I didn't know exactly what was going on. My wife was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm bleeding over here." So she was like, "Okay." Because she's a nurse. So she's like, okay, what do we got to do? So I'm like, okay, let me just wrap it up and see what's going on, right? So I wrapped it, applied pressure or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
So wait a little while, take it off. Took it off. It looked like it was cool. Then it started bleeding again. So I wrapped it up, applied pressure, boom, stopped for a little bit, took it off, still bleeding. So I had to go to the doctor. When I got to the doctor, they had to figure out a way to actually close it. Yeah, applying pressure stopped it for a little bit. You know what I mean? But applying that pressure wasn't enough for it to get the closure that it needed. That's how we are a lot of times. We're doing everything under the sun to keep pressure on something, to keep people from recognizing that there's a gaping hole there, to try to slow the bleeding, to try to make it look all right. But at the end of the day, until it's properly closed, you're going to continue to have this problem. Now you have to realize that you're responsible for giving yourself the closure that you need. Yes, I could have sat there and kept wrapping it up. But until I decided to get up and go somewhere where I could get closure, I would have been in the same predicament, maybe with minus one finger at that time. But, this is why it's important to give yourself what you need.
Yes. Rob, I just knew having this conversation was going to be good with you. And to the listeners who are listening, we're not bad-mouthing the relationship people out there, but we are saying they can only take you but so far. And you have to decide, do you want to continue to just date, or are you looking for something real and lasting? And if you're looking for something real and lasting, then I would say you can trust Dr. Rob, because he's gone from one place to another. And when you're looking for that, you need to have somebody who can take you places where other folk have not experienced and do not know. They do not know what's required on this side. So, Rob, thank you so much for everything. And thank you for this conversation. So where can people find you? And what do you want our listeners' final takeaway to be from our conversation?
You can catch me on Facebook, of course, under Robert Nolden. You can catch me on Instagram, Love Dr. Rob. And like I said, on Mondays, I'm doing a Man Conversation Monday, which is, kind of like a woman's opportunity to be a fly on the wall during a conversation between men, which has been really, really insightful. But I think like the most important thing that I would want to leave with people, and this has been my favorite quote as of late, because it was one that I don't know what made me post it, but it was definitely necessary. But it was until you love yourself right, expect everybody else to get it wrong. We teach people how to treat us. So if you're not loving yourself properly, if you're not giving yourself the proper care, everybody who comes into your life, who comes into your space, is going to mess it up. They're going to get it wrong because they're only following what you're doing with yourself. So make sure that you're giving yourself the right time, attention, and energy, and love and affection, so that way you can get that same energy back.
That's good. Well, that's it, y'all. Until next time, remember that you're worthy, you're worth it. You are more than enough. Bye. You have just listened to the Enough Factor podcast with your host, Suzette Vernon. To get notified of new episodes or to dig deeper into today's topic, become a subscriber. And while you're at it, tell us how we're doing and what topics you're interested in. We appreciate your feedback and your reviews. Until next time, remember, you are worthy, you are worth it, you are enough.